Hello, and welcome to the Wedding Reporter podcast. I have a really fun and special guest for us today. Her name is Elle Evans, and she is an author of a new book coming out called Wedding Issues. And I just think it's so perfect for this podcast and just for any bride who is looking for just a really fun read while they're engaged. So I'll go ahead and start with her intro. Elle Evans is a longtime reader and upcoming debut novelist. Originally from Massachusetts, Elle spent 5 years in Nashville and fell in love with Southern hospitality, although she can't stand the too sweet iced tea. She lives with her husband and their rescue pup Calypso, the first of their dozen dogs to be named after mythological characters. As a day job, Elle works as a resident anesthesiologist. Welcome to the podcast, Elle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear about this new book that you wrote. And I did actually get like a little sneak peek of it, and I read the first couple chapters. And so I'm still on pins and needles to see how it ends. And so I
Let's
won't
see.
be able to give
Spoilers.
away. But
Perfect.
let's start at the beginning. Tell us how it all came about. How did you become an author?
Yeah, so I've always been a really big reader growing up. I was that kid who always had my head in books, and I sort of dabbled in writing throughout childhood and high school. Wrote some plays in college, and then in med school a couple years ago, I decided to try and take the writing thing seriously. So started
That's cool.
actually reading about how to write a book and character development, all these things that I'd sort of ignored until that point. And then
Mhm.
sort of went through the whole manuscript writing process, got an agent, and then got my first book deal for Wedding Issues.
Awesome. Congratulations. That is huge. I know just in that industry, it's really hard to get a book deal. And so I think that's pretty smart the way that you went with it by getting an agent and somebody to help you out and get it published. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
no,
It's so
it's
great.
it's definitely not for the faint-hearted. There was a lot of rejection along the way, but I'm really
Sure.
lucky and really happy to sort of be where I am now, and I'm like so incredibly thrilled to in 2 months be able to say that I'm a novelist. It's so exciting.
I know. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, and for this book to be your debut book is super exciting. So, it's called Wedding Issues. What inspired you to write about weddings?
Yeah, so I wrote this book when I was in my mid to late 20s, which was a time in my life when pretty much felt like everyone I knew was getting engaged or getting married,
Oh,
including
yeah.
me. I also got engaged and married in that time period, but I
Oh,
think I was a
cool.
bridesmaid like 6 or 7 times in 2 years. So it was just like a
Oh, yeah.
really, really big part of my life was wedding planning. And I realized obviously you have the sort of love story between the two people who are getting married, but wedding planning and that sort of lead up process, it gave me the chance to catch up with friends from college who lived elsewhere now. And it sort of brought people together a lot more than just on that one day. And I was
Mhm.
realizing how many sort of stories there are around weddings that are more than that just kind of core love story of the people getting married. And I wanted to write a book that sort of focused on, that had like wedding planning as the backdrop, but focused more on like friend love, and self love and like those different kind of love stories to tell. And then I was sort of falling more and more in love with Nashville every year. So I decided to set it in Nashville since I placed a lot of the scenes and locations that I went every day. So that was just very fun.
That's so cool. I love that. And I mean, we're based in Nashville too, and we love it. So you were here for 5 years, and
Mhm.
was that for school and for,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
for grad school for so I did a
okay.
my med school and the business school in Nashville. And then I
Okay.
had to go to Philadelphia, sadly a little bit colder, not as fun
Oh, yeah.
for like sort of the next step of medical training, but I think there's a decent chance that my husband and I moved back to Nashville after we're done. So we might be back
Oh,
again.
yay!
Yeah.
Awesome. That'd be so fun.
Such a fun
Yes.
city. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did as someone from the north, but I don't know,
Hmm.
it's really special, as you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I just love like in the little bit of the book that I've read already, like just the little Nashville touches throughout. It's like a lot of it takes place at Vanderbilt. And then it's like, you talk about like the hip taco spots. And I'm like, I think I know which one she's referencing. And like, all these things that just like kind of come up that it's just really cool. So, if you're listening and if you are in the Nashville area or familiar with it, it's really fun, fiction novel that kind of like incorporates some real life places too.
Yeah, no, there's a couple, I won't give any spoilers away, but definitely a couple of big showdowns that occur in Centennial Park, so you can kind of keep that in
Awesome.
your mind as well.
Yes, very cool. I love that. So, we talked a little bit about this, but where did you kind of come up with the concept for wedding issues? So, and I know you said like around the time that you wrote it, you were in a lot of weddings and things like that, but like when it came down to writing it, like, and like gonna jump in and be an author now and write my first novel, like with weddings as the topic, like, is that kind of who you envisioned your audience as, like, as far as age group and things go, or?
Yeah, so I think for me it was sort of like I said, wedding planning was a big part of my life for those years, and it's a very fun sort of beach vacation read type book. And when I
Mm-hmm.
look through these kind of books, and when I read them, there's sort of there's the whole genre of rom-coms, and then you have books that are like kind of heavy on the like romances that have some funny bits, and then you have like funny books where there's a romance subplot. And
Yeah.
I've always been drawn more to the latter, the sort of funnier books, like books that have like a romance subplot over the core. The romance isn't sort of
Mhm.
the main story. And so that was
Yeah.
sort of the book that I wanted to write. And then also when wedding planning, I was realizing it doesn't matter how many incredibly type A people you have on the, scheduling and planning. It's such a big event. A lot of the times there's so many details, like something will go wrong. If you talk to anyone
Oh,
who's been
yes.
married, something didn't go 100% according to plan, including at my own wedding, despite my very, very,
Mhm.
very organized mother being very on the ball. And it's totally
Yes.
fine. Like, you marry the person you love, it's
Right.
great. But at
Exactly.
the same time,
Yes.
there's gonna be some issues. So I was like, it would just be
Uh-huh.
such an easy way for there to be sort of acts of sabotage because, things go wrong even if there isn't any sabotage. So it would be so easy and kind of
Mhm.
funny to do these scenarios if there was.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that kind of brings us to the next question. With it being called wedding issues, I love that kind of play on words. Like you said, there's always some little sort of wedding issue that happens, no matter
Mhm.
how tightly planned your wedding is. Like, we all have them in our weddings.
Yeah.
And then it is also kind of about the wedding publishing industry, which we're in. We're an online wedding publication. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, this is so cool. And I can totally relate because it's like so much of what's going on in our industry. So, like, give us a little more synopsis of the book and, plot line and everything, and maybe sprinkle in some of the characters.
Sure. So, Wedding Issues is about Olivia as the main character. She's a very fast talking, charismatic law student who finds herself as the maid of honor for two weddings that are sort of dueling for a bridal magazine cover. And what's sort of
Yes.
even further complicating things is one of those weddings is her best friend's wedding, and then one of the weddings is her cousin's wedding. And her sort of extremely evil aunt is blackmailing her into helping her cousin. And so she's kind of stuck in this impossible position, but she's the kind of person who thinks she can do anything, and sort of kind of just attacks the problem with full force and a lot of sort of creative talking. And so there's a lot of wedding planning, sort of fun hijinks and sabotage, a very scheming aunt, and then a little bit of a forbidden crush on her best friend's brother. So kind of sprinkles in a bunch of fun different things.
Oh, yeah. That's so fun. Yeah, and I'm like, I can't wait to get to the wedding parts of the book where I'm like,
Yes, yeah. When of
oh.
course it's a wedding planning book, so it takes place over the course of almost a year, and you sort of go through with the characters through an engagement party and a bridal shower, dress shopping, and sort of hitting all these big milestones on the journey to the altar and the big day, and then of course the end scenes are at the two weddings. So you do
Mhm.
get there in the end.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I love that, it's a fiction novel about weddings because it's like it's so lighthearted and fun. And I think a lot of times in the wedding planning process, it's like, it's so serious and there's a lot of emotions happening and you're dealing with budgets and
Mhm.
dealing with family opinions and things like that. But like to sit down and to be able to have like almost this escape that takes you to, it's like still on topic of weddings, but like, it sort of like transports you to another time and place where you can just sort of like let go of all like the actual planning stuff for a little while and actually just like have something fun and lighthearted to enjoy during your planning process, which I think is really fun.
No, I mean, absolutely. I remember when I was planning my wedding, like, there's like you said, it's just like there's so many emotions tied up in all
Oh,
of it. And
yeah.
I remember my mom and I were like crying together at some restaurant. We were talking
Yeah.
about whether or not to do a first look because her and my dad did one, and it was, it's just
Oh,
some very
yeah.
heavy moments sometimes. And so, like you said, I hope this is sort of very on topic for people who either just love weddings or are planning themselves or going to a bunch,
Mhm.
but also a little bit of that sort of escapism, like a little bit of distraction.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, for sure. So there's so many ties to Nashville. We kind of touched on this before. How did you decide on the location? I know you did say that, you spent a lot of time here, but like out of anywhere that you could write a book, like what makes Nashville like so special and magical for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think part of it is it was a city that I moved in sort of like I said at that stage in my life when weddings were becoming more.
Mhm.
And then Nashville is just such a fun place, and it's a very special place that a lot of people want to visit, and so it's a cool place to set a book because everyone's interested in reading about it in a way that they
Oh
may
yeah.
not be as interested, no offense to like Cincinnati, reading about
Right.
or there somewhere like that. And
Mhm.
there are just so many different, of course, everyone thinks of like Broadway and the honky tonks, etc. But there's like these other like fun little like 12 South and all the murals or Centennial Park. There's all these
Mhm.
other little like Cheekwood, all these other little fun,
Yeah.
like you said, almost Easter eggs. If you actually know Nashville as a city, if you've lived there or visited, then you'll sort of pick up on some of these smaller things. And then if you haven't, hopefully you read this book and you're like, Nashville sounds great. I'm going to go there right
Mhm.
now. And then the tourism industry will give you a kickback or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know. You should probably send a copy to the tourism board here.
I think so.
They
It
will
could
be
be
thanking you.
City's new book club read or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, that would be so fun. Yeah, definitely. I love that. And you are so right. So many people do just think of Broadway and like come here for that tourist aspect of it, but there are so many other Easter eggs in Nashville that are so fun and so interesting and like there's a whole other world out there besides like the bachelorette party scene.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
for sure. So, I love the characters in this book. It's really fun. It almost gives me like, some of those rom-com vibes like Devil Wears Prada a little bit here and there and like so are any of the characters in the book like based off of real life people or are
Ooh.
they all fictional?
I think a lot of my characters are sort of I guess inspired by a real life person, and
Uh-huh.
and then I sort of build off of that. Like I don't write specific people into the book, but I think of sort of inspiration. One of my very good friends is a very successful hiking influencer. So very different than Leighton. The
Cool.
best friend in the book is sort of into fashion. But I definitely sort of thought of her when I was, kind of originating that character. And then I had a really good friend in college, a guy best friend that I was also thinking about when I was writing the Aditya character. And so I think like I said, I'm inspired by people, and then I would never want to write someone specifically into a book,
Yeah.
but I think
Mhm.
naturally, either consciously or subconsciously, you create a lot of your characters based on the people that you know, and you sort of build off
Mhm.
of those building blocks.
Yeah, for sure. And I notice like with the character development of like Liv, Olivia, and also like Leighton, um, Leighton's her friend who is the social media influencer that you mentioned. It's like she you make so many references to like the influencer industry and just like, knowing the numbers and the impressions and everything through Instagram and like given your background that you are kind of in like medicine and medical world and that sort of thing, you know that just kind of brought to mind that I'm like, you must have a friend who like works in social media or like is an influencer for you to kind of like draw all this inspiration from, like, for
Yeah.
this character, and to like be so knowledgeable about like that industry too, because I'm in that industry in a way, and I was like, this is pretty spot on of like what
Good,
she's
good.
saying
We're
about
fact
it.
checking
So
you. Good,
yeah.
good. Yeah, and then
For
another great book,
sure.
really that friend inspired me. And then I have another good friend who is in big law, which is Olivia, the main
Oh
character,
yeah.
is a law student and considering a future in big law throughout the book. And so I definitely sort of ran stuff by her and fact checked things with her. Because as a doctor, it always bothers me when people write very unrealistic things about
Oh
doctors.
yeah,
So I'm like, all
for
right,
sure.
gotta get my facts right.
Definitely. Well, you did a great job at that.
So,
So, tell us why brides or couples would love to read this book during their engagement.
ah, great question. I think like you alluded to earlier, it's a really fun, just like escape read. It can
Mhm.
feel very relevant if you're at that point in your life because you're like, I see
Mhm.
myself in some of these wedding planning stresses, but it's not happening to you, and it's not your
Right.
actual like, family
Yeah.
problems or budget problems or hopefully no one actually has a crazy aunt who's sabotaging everything problems. But if you do, then you'll
Yes.
see this book and be like, "What's my aunt?" So I think
Yes.
that's really fun, and honestly, for anyone, it's I think even if you're past that time in your life or you're a little younger and your friends are starting to think about that or you are, it's just a really fun and sort of joyful time is kind of getting to celebrate your friends, your family, your own love. Like that's just a really special
Mhm.
thing. For a lot of us nowadays, where we sort of leave home or leave town, it brings people from different stages of our lives together, like physically too, people who live in different places. And that's a really special moment. I remember that was me and my husband's sort of favorite part about our wedding is just getting to bring so many
Mhm.
people we cared about together, is more important than the perfect party or whatever. It's really just getting to spend this
Mhm.
quality time with all of like our loved ones. And so I think any book that sort of reminds you of those feelings and all of the happiness, like and anticipation on that build up to that day is hopefully going to put a smile on people's faces.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the people who are at your wedding totally make your wedding, and it's,
Mhm.
yeah, such a special time where it's like, these are all my favorite people all in one place. Like, when in life is this
Yeah,
ever going to happen again? Like, probably
exactly.
never. And it's like, it's hard to soak it in because it goes by so fast, but like, it's such just a cool memory to think back on and everything. And also just to anticipate if you're engaged. Um, but yeah, and I just think it's really cool, like, just a really fun read for, even wedding enthusiasts. Like, that's the term I
Mhm.
like to use, is
I like
like, the people who listen to this podcast, like, you know, may or may not, I mean, the majority are probably engaged couples or just
Mhm.
recently married, or maybe wedding vendors, but like, also, I think there's this whole group of people out there who are wedding enthusiasts and just love anything wedding, like
Yeah.
love to flip through wedding magazines and like look at celebrity weddings online. And so this book is for them too.
No, definitely be absolutely right up their alley.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, where can you get a copy of Wedding Issues, and will it be online in bookstores or
Yes.
anywhere special?
Yeah, so Wedding Issues comes out on April 2nd. So you can pick up a copy probably in Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, hopefully your local bookstore at that time. But even better, you can pre-order now so that you get it on
Mm.
April 2nd. You can do that on Amazon, on Barnes& and Noble, or on bookstore.com, which is the platform that a lot of independent booksellers use so that they can kind of offer those online offerings as well. So, uh, yeah, so you don't have to
That's
wait till April
awesome.
2nd. You can order it now and it will be there at your door.
Yay! Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you want to read Wedding Issues, a really fun, lighthearted novel about, you know, two friends battling to make the cover of a wedding magazine, which this concept, I just love it. So April 2nd is the date. So that is coming up quick. So make sure you pre-order. And if it's already after April 2nd and you're listening to this, the links will still be great. You can order it, buy it, and let us know what you think. You should email me at alyssa@nashvillebrideguide.com, or you can DM me at Nashville Bride Guide and just let me know what you think of wedding issues. I would love to chat more about it with you. So, is there anything else you wanted to share with us today, Elle?
I guess if you're in the Nashville area and you happen to listen to this before the book comes out, I will be at Parnassus Bookshop on
Awesome.
April 5th, the Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, April 5th at 6 p.m. I'll be doing a little book signing and little speaking event, totally free. So you should stop by.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, Parnassus is so awesome. And I love that you're going to be there doing a book signing. I'll have to come out and say hi.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah. Get to meet you in person. That would be so
Mhm.
awesome. So, well, this was so great. I'm so glad we got to talk about the book. And I really am hoping our listeners will just pick one up and read it when they go to the beach on spring break or in the summer, whatever it might be. It's coming out at the perfect time for that. Great
Yeah.
beach read. So thank you so much for chatting with me today. And this was so great. Good luck with the whole launch and everything.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course. Have a good one. Thanks, Elle.
You.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Wedding Reporter podcast. I hope you learned a little bit and had fun today. To find more resources and podcast episodes, visit NashvilleBrideGuide.com for more information. And as always, click the subscribe button and leave us a review. Until next time, I'm Alyssa DeChico, signing off.